Hi there. I just wanted to talk to you today about 4 steps that you can use to create awesome content that actually gets read. Now, obviously with us with magazine publishing, this is a pretty critical step because we want to make sure that we're creating content that our readers love to read, and it's constantly changing, and we've got to constantly keep evolving with the clients and keep up to date with the latest ways that we can present content to people that make them engage with it more. So 4 steps that I'm going to give you that might sort of open up your eyes a little bit, some things you may not have thought of and some things you might be already doing. The first one is you need to get really clear on who your client is. So I did another live on this where I went into a lot of detail about how we actually formulate our customer personas with our clients, and even in our own business, we get super clear about who our target customer is. So you can't write for everybody, so you've really got to try and bring the content to a place where you're writing to somebody, and who is that somebody? You know, I like to, if I can, actually name my avatar or my persona so that I'm actually super clear who I'm writing for, and don't write for everybody. Write to someone, for someone, with information that they'll find valuable, and that'll actually speak to them. So that's point number 1, get clear on your client. The second second important step is to make sure that you're planning out your content. So make sure that you actually, you know, whether that's an Excel spreadsheet or a whiteboard in your office or whatever it might be, plan your content out. So actually have a look at a calendar and think about the types of content that you're going to be creating, and make sure there's a really nice mix there, and I'll talk about that in the next point. So actually have a plan. You know, it's like when you start to write with a blank sheet of paper, there's nothing more daunting. So is starting something without having a plan. So you might overwhelm yourself thinking, oh, I've got to create all this content, but actually when you map it out, you go, actually, you know what? I've actually only got to create 1 blog post because I can use that in this way, this way, and this way, and this way. So really important that you start a process of planning your content and come up with a content plan. And if you Google content plans, there's some really good templates out there now to help you do that. The third way is, of course, is once you've done your content and written your content, is to promote it and distribute it. Now, I see lots and lots of people creating really great blog posts, putting it on their website, and then that's where it stays. And they just assume that by the wonder of gods, or hopefully if it gets, you know, ranked highly enough on Google, that someone will read it. But, you know, that's not enough. Now, when I said before about planning it, and the different platforms, there's so many ways that content, you know, can be created now and distributed. So obviously you've got all of your social platforms, but don't forget the places like Twitter and LinkedIn. If you were to write, for us it's an article, for you it might be a blog post. Take that blog post or that article, have a good look at it and go, right, how many different pieces of content could I create with this one blog? Could I extract out of that blog post some quotes that I can put on social media, like memes that I can create? Are there some really bold statements that I'm making that are thought-provoking? Am I posing a question anywhere throughout the content that I can say, you know, do you know the number 1 reason why you're not launching in your career? ? That becomes a post, and of course then you share a link to wherever the article's being, or the blog post is. So each blog or article becomes multiple, we call it the tentacles, that you can distribute out through your market and through to your clients, and to get you more reach. The other thing you can do is turn those articles, so if they're the written word, turn them into a video. You know, do a Facebook Live where you have a discussion about the article, actually physically read the article and turn it into an audio. So each individual piece of content can become multiple tentacles of content that you can use to get out to the marketplace. So the biggest key part of creating awesome content, I've seen some fantastic pieces of content written that so few people read because they just haven't, you know, promoted it and distributed it. And then the final way to make sure that you are producing awesome content that gets read is to test and measure. So what you think your avatar, you know, early on in business, we are doing a little bit of guessing. As we get further into our business, it becomes a lot more of an educated guess. But initially we are doing a bit of guessing. to reduce the amount of guessing that you do later on, have a look at what's getting engaged. You know, the wonderful thing about the way we're producing our digital magazines now is we can actually tell the engagement that our readers are doing on our clients. You know, for My Baby magazine, for example, that we've recently launched, we can tell where they're hanging out, what they're reading the most, what they're clicking on. So it gives us a lot of intelligence and learnings that we can use for issue 2. So for you with your content, have a look at what posts on Facebook really triggered people, what statements that you made that really opened up a discussion, and use that to put into next month's plan so that you continue to create great content that the person that you created in point number 1, your target customer, actually wants to read. So really quick wrap up of those again. How to the 4 steps in creating awesome content that gets read. First one is get clear on that client. Get super clear, if I can say that enough times, on who your client is. The second one is to plan it out. Don't sort of whimsically wander through and just, you know, churn out content. Some people are quite creative and they can produce content like a machine, but it lacks a process and a plan. If it lacks a process and a plan, it still can become cluttered and noisy and not land with your client. So it's not even just about planning it so that you're forced into, you know, a structure to commit you to sit down at your desk and write something. It's also to make sure there's a bit of structure to what you're doing. Then, of course, the big point is to promote it and distribute it and make sure that you're plucking out all the content you possibly can out of your article so those tentacles are out there reaching your target customer. And the last one is to test and measure and grab the intelligence off that content so that you can then really use that intelligence to then create even better content. And the more and more learning you do, I mean, you know, for us, from issue 1 to issue 4 of a magazine, it's pivoting all the time. The new funky word for evolving. You know, it's pivoting all the time because we're learning after each issue. We get things right, we get things wrong, and we learn from both of them, and we progress to the next issue with, you know, a smarter and better issue for our reader. So I hope that was of value to you. Have a really great rest of the day.